Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Today I'm back with a spoiler-free book review of Butter by Asako Yuzuki. This is a Japanese novel that has been published in 2017, and it took inspiration from a real-life serial killer called the Konkatsu Killer, who has been poisoning men between the years of 2007 and 2009. The emphasis is on inspired because that is not exactly what happens in this story. Let me know in the comments down below if you're watching this review because you just finished this book and you just want to know what other people are thinking, which is something that I do very often. The story is set primarily in Tokyo, and it is about a young reporter named Rika. Through some manipulation on her own, she secures a face-to-face meeting with the infamous murderer Manako Kaji. She's a woman in her 30s who's being accused of murdering 3 older men by seducing them with her cooking. My copy is the German translation by Ursula Gräfe. I bought this a few years ago, and since 2024 there's been an English translation on the market. I will put up the book cover here. Currently this book has a Goodreads review of 3.47 stars, which is on the lower end, and I've also seen and read quite a few book reviewers that didn't really like this book. I seem to have an opposing view in that I really loved this book. I had such a great time with it. This is a good segment into the first part of my review, which is expectations versus reality of this book. I did notice that a lot of the not so great reviews have 2 things in common. The first one is that people were expecting a page turner, something very fast paced. In some quotes on the English translation book jacket, it even says that this is unputdownable and a thriller. I personally think it's none of those things. This is more a character study and literary fiction rather than a thriller, and I wouldn't describe this book as unputdownable because things move extremely slow in this book. The second thing that a lot of people seem to criticize is that the book is just way too long and inflated. While I don't technically disagree with that, I personally still found enjoyment in this book once I accepted that this is going to be moving very, very slow. And I accepted that I'm not going to read this in 2 days, but it's something that I have to really savor. Now that we've set the base, let's move into the themes of this book and also what I really liked about it. I want to preface that this is all subject to my own interpretation. If you have read this, maybe you understood it in a slightly different way. The probably most important theme in this book is feminism and gender roles. There's this quote by Manako Kaji: "There are 2 things that I can simply not tolerate: feminism and margarine." I personally agree with one of those things, and spoiler alert, I am a feminist. In the story, Rika keeps going to the prison to interview and talk to Manako Kaji to learn about her as a person and her background. And what crystallizes pretty early on is that Manako has a very strong opinion on where a woman's place is in the household and in society. In her mind, women have a duty to fulfill, which is that they have to feed and nurture a family. What I thought was very intriguing is that her view on feminism and the role of a woman in general lends herself for us, the readers, and also for Rika to learn about why and what she did to those men. And even more interesting to me is that that pretty clear stance doesn't make her a straightforward character either. There are many moments where she contradicts herself, and the one that stood out to me is that she says that women have to take care of men because they are inferior and weak, so they have to be excused when they do bad things. This book is long, so we go quite a bit into that. And another interesting aspect I found in this book is talking about Japanese beauty standards. I think it's pretty known that especially women are held to an extremely high beauty standard in Japan. I learned that also through my recent travel there. The book talks a lot about weight to a point where it made me feel very uncomfortable. So the characters, for example, are naming their height and actual weight a lot, which right away led me to think, oh, why would you put that in there? That's so sensitive because whoever the reader is might then compare themselves to whatever they're reading. But then I took a step back and thought, oh, well, this is just the reality of what women are up against. And this is really something that is always on Rika's mind and also on her best friend Raiko's mind at all times. So the book talks a lot about Rika and Raiko's weight, and it is usually also a reflection of how they are doing in their life at that moment. And we also talk a lot about Manako Kaji's weight. Her weight and looks are a pretty big defining point of how society views her and her crimes. While it is terrible, it was very amusing to me how the general public was contemplating how such an ugly and fat woman could seduce so many men. Another very positive element in this book for me, which also really surprised me, is how well portrayed this female friendship is between Rika and her best friend Raiko. These two women, while being best friends, are also in contrast to each other. So we have Riko, the young reporter, who is our main protagonist. She is a single woman who has a career, who's living alone in the city. And then her best friend, in contrast to that, is a married woman who had given up her job to focus on her marriage and having children. And on top of that, she's also very domestically skilled. She's very good at cooking. What I really liked is that we get so much realness out of this relationship. They question each other's choices a lot, sometimes in silence and sometimes out loud. An important part in this book is actually Raiko becoming increasingly concerned with Rika because she becomes really beguiled with Manako Kaji, even to a point where she starts to insert herself in this, not investigation, but in this exploration of Manako Kaji's background. I always enjoy the passages where we have Rika and Riko in focus together, and also their dialogues when they are being honest to each other and talking about their lives. Then we have the aspect of loneliness in the city. Even though our main character and side characters all have attachments to other people, each and every one of them experiences feeling isolation and feeling loneliness at some point in the story. This is a point that also feeds into Manako Kaji's background and her history, so I think the aspect of loneliness and isolation is also a very interesting red string in this story. From what I have read and what I understand is that this loneliness aspect is very prevalent in Japanese society, so no wonder that the author decided to build this into the story as well. And lastly, but very important, the food writing in this book. As someone who loves butter and salt, this book was an absolute treat. I think that the descriptions of the food were absolutely mouth-watering because it is said that Manako Kaji seduced these men with her cooking. Food and the rituals around food and cooking, the meaning of it, are very important to this story. We explore the pleasure of eating as well as cooking and preparing the dishes. And as the title suggests, this book also teaches you to really savor butter and think about all the ways that you can use butter. While I was reading this book, I definitely went out and bought some really good quality French butter. As someone who lives to eat and to cook, the food writing is definitely a highlight in this book. Let's get into the negatives of this book. Yes, this book is definitely long. I let myself enjoy the pace just as Rika learned to, savor meals. So did I with every very long chapter in this book. Again, I would describe this more as literary fiction and a character study rather than a fast-paced thriller. And I think if you go into that book with that expectations, chances are you will like it way more. I would say though, if this book had been 100 pages shorter, I think this could have been a 5-star book for me. There is also a part in the book where we switch perspectives. We switch the narrator and we also switch the tone of the book. I think that the author did this to create tension in the story, but I thought it was a little misplaced and I think we could have honestly done without it. I don't think anything was really expressed or said in those chapters that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten out of this book. I would also agree that for the length of this novel, so this is I think 450 pages long, at least the German version. I believe that the English version must be a bit shorter. We could have definitely used some less circling around the same topics and did more deep dives into some of these pressures that the characters experience. But I do think that the book redeems itself because I really did get behind the character arcs that we see in this book, not just of the main characters, but of the side characters too. So finally, I loved all the butter content in this book, and like butter, I found this book to be a very rich experience. So in the end, I gave this book 4 stars. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of this book if you've already read it, and if you just want to let me know that you made it to this point of the video, then why don't you leave me some kind of food emoji. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.